dog food tastes really great using Python. So, brief outline. I'm going to introduce myself, tell you a little bit about tails.com, just so I'm aware some of you might not know who we are yet. I'm going to talk about palatability, what that even means, and why it is that we care about it. And then go on to talking about network analysis and the library network X and how we're using that to help improve our palatability. So, yeah, this is me. Hi. I'm a mathematician previously. I was at York and then I was at Bristol doing a PhD. After that, I moved out of academia for kind of all the same reasons that everyone else does, and I joined the Department of Education. I was working there as an analyst, and it was there that data science started becoming a thing, and there was more and more talk about it, and I was getting more interested in data as a real career and the things you could do with it. And then I joined the ASI Data Science Fellowship, where basically I learned how to code, I learned Python, and learned how to apply all my math skills to the field of data science. And then since then, I've been at tails.com working as a data scientist, and I've been there for about 2 years now. So, and I'm also a massive dog fan, that's why I'm still at Tails. Cool, so, tails.com. Who, apart from Ian obviously, who's heard of us so far? Yeah, cool. There's more and more hands there, I like this. So we're a subscription company, and we make tailor-made dog food. So if you have a dog, you sign up online, you go through a little consultation, you tell us all about your dog, their breed, their weight, what they like eating, what their favourite flavours are, and all of this goes into us understanding what dry dog food your dog needs. Based on that, we have an algorithm, we make you a blend of dry dog food, we put it in a bag with your dog's name on it, ship it to your dog, and we do that every month with your customers, so you never run out of food. And also as your dog ages, the needs change, the food changes with your dog, so you know that you're always getting a really, really great blend of dog food. And so, at the centre of everything that we do, of course, is our blend algorithm. That's our product. That's how we make dog food that we can send to your dog. And so, our blend algorithm essentially takes into account a lot of the things that we get off your sign-up, everything about your dog, basically. And we take all of our different individual dog food recipes that we have, our little kibbles, that's what these things are called, and we blend them together, usually 3, in a way that gives your dog exactly the nutrients they need. So the right levels of protein, fats, omega-3, all of the things. And with our combinations, you can get potentially one of a million different blends. So genuinely, it's really, really tailor-made to your dog. And so there's a few things that we want our algorithm to do. So first, it's got to be good for your dog, otherwise, what's the point? But within that, it's also got to taste good, because if your dog doesn't like the food, they're not going to eat it. Again, there's no point in us putting all the effort into making a tailor-made flavour that they're not going to enjoy. So once our algorithm has got all of the potential blends that suit your needs nutritionally, can we select one of those blends that we think is really going to, your dog is really, really going to love, because that's the one that we should be sending over all of the others. And so this is kind of what we call palatability. It's how can we make sure our blends just aren't great nutritionally, but also taste really good as well. So how do we know that a dog doesn't like the food? So luckily for us, because we're a good data company and we're a subscription business, we have a direct link between you as a customer and the food that we send you. Because we know all of your information about your dog online, we've used that to make you a blend and we send it to your door. And then it's a subscription business, so if you don't like the food and you cancel, we ask you why. And one of the reasons that you can give is that your dog doesn't like the food. So we can directly link when someone says they don't like the food to the order that they got and the dog that we were trying to feed. So we got a pretty clear signal of what we mean with palatability, which is when the food didn't really work out for some reason. And this here is a list of some of our rough buckets of cancellation reasons that you can give. And you can see that didn't like this recipe is one of our top reasons why people cancel. And so is our food just inherently not good? It's well, no. I mean, generally, palatability of dog food is a really difficult problem, particularly if you're switching food. If you've been feeding your dog pedigree chum for the last year of their life, and then you suddenly switch to Tails food, they might not like it because it's something different and it might not agree with them. So palatability generally is a really, really hard problem in dog food, and there's a lot of companies out there putting in a lot of effort to try and make their food as great as possible for their dog. And there are exceptions to that, obviously. And so palatability more widely then. I've spoken about the food there, but it's not just the food. So obviously, the food is a big part of that. How, the ingredients that we use in the food will affect the taste, and so that will affect whether the dog likes it or not. But we also offer wet food as well, and if you mix those together, it might taste a little bit different, and if you eat them separately, that can affect the taste. Also, the dogs themselves. Dogs are the most diverse species on the planet, so what one dog likes, another dog won't like, and so it's not just we're trying to make food just generally good food, because of course we are, but there is no such thing as like a tasty dog food. It depends on the dog that you're feeding it to, and so this all takes into account as well. And then you've got the owners on top of that. So the way that you feed your dog will affect how your dog eats the food. And so you think of your favourite dog owner stereotype, like some people will feed their dogs little snacks all day, some people will just, have one big meal at the end of the day. That can affect how your dog likes the food. And also your excitement about the food itself. So if you're looking at a bag of food, smelling it, don't like the smell of it, and then just put it on the floor and walk away, your dog's probably not going to enjoy it. But if you think your dog's going to like the food, then the dog is probably more likely to. So there's all these layers of palatability that go into the challenge of us being able to make great food that's great for your dog, but that also your dog's going to love and that you're going to like feeding your dog as well. So what would we do if we weren't feeding dogs? So if we were feeding humans, it's a little bit easier because we could get a food testing panel. We can have a bunch of people in a room, we can have different samples of food, and then when they say which one they like, we can ask them why. And they give us and hopefully they give us some great information about why they like certain foods. Obviously, we can't do that for dogs because we can't really understand what they're saying. So, that's a bit of a shame. We've not got the qualitative information around this, which we might otherwise have. But in dog food, there still is kind of similar things, like the classic 2-bowl test, which you can see on the right, and this is used up quite a lot in the, to try and understand in control conditions which food the dog would prefer, food A or food B. But that doesn't really solve our problem either, because again, we don't just have food A and food B, we have blends, and we can potentially send you 1 per million blends, so there's no such thing as a 2-bowl test really, to really take into account everything that we know affects whether you're going to like the food. 2-bowl test doesn't really cut it for us, so we have to do something a little bit smarter. And that's where network analysis comes in. And we're using this as a tool to kind of visualise all of the blends that we're sending out to all of our customers so that we can kind of try and pick out little correlations in there with things that occur more often when people don't like the food compared to when they carry on and keep ordering. Cool, so what is network analysis? So I put this in from Alan's talk yesterday because I quite liked it. So yeah, to quote Alan yesterday, network analysis is essentially just points and lines. And what that basically means is it's a way of structuring and understanding your data where you're considering not just the data points themselves, but how they connect to each other, the relationship between them. So the lines essentially between them. And it can be a really, really useful technique when you've got a data set when actually, to really, really understand what's going on, you care about the relationship between the points, not just the points themselves. Kind of like here with our dog food. We don't just care about the individual ingredients, we care about what happens when we put them together. And so yeah, it's been used in quite a lot of different situations. So classic ones around influences. If you know in your customer base who's talking to whom, you know who your central points are, their influences, they're the guys that you want to keep happy because then they will recommend you organically to the rest of your customer base, and you can grow a great network there. Also, detecting fraudulent behaviour and terrorism has been used quite a lot in that if you've got some suspicious activity going on and you know who's opened bank accounts for who and who's got emails of who, finding the common nodes in this can help pinpoint where exactly fraudulent or terrorism activity is happening, can help you solve it there. And yeah, general product recommendations and things you like, I like this, people used it, all these can be used. You can frame all of these ideas using network analysis again with the relationships between your points, not just the individual points themselves. And as I've already mentioned, you can also use it to make tasty dog food blends, which is my role here. So, to do this, I've been using the Python library Network X. If you haven't used it before, I recommend you give it a go. I'm not going to spend too much time in the talk going through all of the ins and outs and how you use it. Actually, the documentation is really good, so just go and check it out. But yeah, it's super easy to get started. anything can, like, it will consider anything to be an edge between points, any data points, so it's kind of quite sort of agnostic to the type of data that you have. And yeah, and there's a lot to it basically. So here I'm using it basically as a visualization aid because our network of kibbles is actually relatively small compared to a massive terrorism network, for instance. So a lot of the functions and like different algorithms in that we don't really need in this case. But you know, just to say they are there, it's not just a big picture. So yeah, do go check it out. But in this case, we're going to use network X to make some networks of our blends so that we can see how our ingredients, which ingredients like tend to be going in bags with other ingredients and how they're working out together. And then we're going to use, like, we're going to size and colour the graph based on the likelihood that said ingredient or combination of ingredients is resulting in a palatability issue, meaning someone's going to cancel the food. And that's how we're going to try and diagnose our blends and try and improve them. So I'll just kind of build this picture up over time, and this is sort of actually organically how I actually started doing it, so it sort of makes sense for me to go through the story. So to begin with, we'll take some of our kibbles. So this is that I keep some of our dog feed ingredients or kibbles. This isn't all of our ingredients, but this is just enough to kind of give you a picture of what's going on and how the technique works. And then we're going to join them together where these ingredients have appeared in a blend together. And what you can see is that essentially pretty much all of our different ingredients have appeared in a blend with a different ingredient, which is what you'd expect because we're making tailor-made food. If it was just two different recipes that we're sending out to everybody, then we wouldn't be doing a very good job of giving the tailor-made blend. So, you know, this is not too much of a surprise, but it's not particularly helpful for our cause. So now we're going to size the edges based on likelihood, based on frequency of this combination. So now you can see that there's definitely some pretty common links around, you know, that we tend to give out a lot and some pretty rare ones. And then we do the same for our kibbles as well. So you can see that, again, some of our ingredients we use a lot more than others. And now, let's compare for dogs who didn't like the food because the customer cancelled, and dogs that did like the food and the customers kept reordering. So you can pretty much see, maybe if you squint a bit, like slightly not thicker, but it's, you know, it's not exactly jumping out at you yet because, again, if it was easy to find the combinations in different situations that worked and that didn't, we wouldn't be using network analysis, I guess, to do it. We kind of already know the answer. So, you know, it's a tricky problem. So now we're going to use colour to try and overlay these graphs over each other to look at, to try and get some clearer signals. So we do this first with our ingredients around the outside. And so here I've coloured them by it's like a conditional probability of your dog cancelling for not liking the food, given that they have this ingredient or this kibble in their bag. And so the red ones are the least palatable, which means resulted in the most cancellations. The blue ones relatively didn't result in cancellations at all. So you can see these guys resulted in quite a few cancellations, not that palatable. This guy's pretty good at the moment. And then we do the same thing with the edges. And so now we've got a full picture of all of our blends, well, for these kibbles anyway, and which combinations worked, which combinations didn't work, which kibbles dogs tend to like, and which kibbles they don't tend to like. And now then we can kind of see some insights in here about what we can do and where we should look to try and improve how our food tastes. So, just to give you a few examples. Yeah, this guy up here. It's a pretty big blob, which means we use it quite a lot. It's pretty red, which means relative to the rest of our ingredients, it's not that tasty at the moment. And you can also see that every line that's coming out of it is also pretty red, which means that this probably is going to be the source of some issues. And then, and so this is something we're looking at right now, is for this guy, like, okay, what is it about its ingredient that's just not as good as the rest of them? How do we improve that to overall, hopefully, enhance the rest of our blend? And then, another example, you got this guy on on the right-hand side there. So, again, it's a pretty sizable kibble. It's basically grey-white, which means it's kind of medium palatable, not too bad, not too good. And you can see there's a different combination here. You've got some lines coming out of it pretty blue, some lines coming out of it pretty red. And that suggests that it's not that ingredient itself that's necessarily bad. It's just that when we pair it with different ingredients, it doesn't taste that good. Maybe there's like a texture clash or a flavour clash or something like that that just doesn't really work together. And with other ones, it looks pretty good. So this is the type of case where we not necessarily want to change the ingredient itself, but we might want to change like the likelihood of the algorithm selecting it with different combinations. Like we might want to, suggest the algorithm doesn't choose this combination that much, but does choose this one much. When we have the choice, obviously, first nutrition, palatability second. So when there is the option, try and always choose the ones that taste the best. And we can compare it to different cohorts as well. So obviously you can make these graphs for any segment of pets that you want. So here is what I find quite interesting, is whether you're feeding wet food at the same time as dry food or not. So it's something you might not really consider straight away as a palatability issue. And you can see down here, these guys feed wet food, and this link here is blue. It's pretty good. Relatively, these two ingredients together work pretty well when wet food is fed, compared to in dry food, where again, it's not that good. It's a bit red. So there's something about that combination when wet food is added on side that we might not want to give out. So again, we can feed this back into the algorithm and make sure that if we think you're feeding wet food at the same time, that we're going to give you a dry food that really complements that your dog's really going to like. And again, for this guy here, it seems like overall it tastes a little bit better when wet food's alongside it compared to when it's not. Generally, it's just a little bit more red overall in all cases. And that's kind of an interesting one, because this is one of our plainer smelling meals. Like it's not got a really strong smell. And so there's kind of a working hypothesis here that there's, that wet food works better with plainer smelling nibbles, and when you're just eating dry food alone, you want like really strong aromas from your food. Well, we can use that again to kind of overall enhance the blends that we're giving. And these are the types of, we're digging quite far into it, and basically, before we started using the network analysis approach, like these level of insights, we're just, it's basically really hard to get them to like practically see them in any other way. So that's why, network analysis is a really useful tool. So hopefully I've convinced you now that I'm not just standing here making pretty pictures with Python, but that we're actually doing some pretty good stuff. So a little bit of a summary here. We are using network analysis, and we're using it to find key kibbles, key ingredients and combinations that are resulting in most palatability complaints, as more people are cancelling for not letting food what we give them these. And again, we're using this to pinpoint ingredients that might be the source of things not very tasty, if we can try and improve on them and test and learn with that, as well as looking at combinations and different things that we might not otherwise see without using network analysis that we can then feed back into the algorithm and again overall improve the taste of our blends. Since we've been doing this over the last year or so, we've seen like a real reduction in cancellations for not liking the food. It used to be our biggest reason, it is no more. Like we are generally making really great, like we're understanding a lot more about what our dogs like and the food that works for them. And we're putting this, using network analysis into action, making some really great benefits. So that is all I wanted to say on this. So just a little hiring slide for tails. These are all our office dogs, by the way. We are hiring at the moment. We've got a lead data engineer role and a lot of different tech roles. All of our code base is in Python, so we've got a lot of Python developer roles out there. If you are interested and you like working with dogs and you want to work in London, and then that's our careers website. Take a look at all the roles we've got open. Or I'm wearing a Tails t-shirt. There's a few of those around here, so come and say hi to any of us. And just find out more about what we're doing. And final thing, if you do have a dog, I have some vouchers for you if you want one. We've also got a lot of dog, like tails.com Python stickers to give away. So you'll see us giving them out later. So just come and say hi.
Thank you very much, Lorna. So we've got a couple of minutes. Do we have any questions for Lorna?
People, especially English people, can be very awkward about cancelling subscription services. So when people say that they cancel because their dog didn't like it, do you have any way of knowing whether they're being honest or if they're just trying to pass the buck?
No. But, So, and you're absolutely right, and yeah, you can, hopefully we try and make it as not intimidating as possible to cancel your dog food, but in the way that we're using it, I guess we just kind of hope that if people, you know, the noise in there, the people that did actually like the food, it's sort of uniformly distributed across the recipes, because I think it'd be quite unlikely to, because we're using it as a signal for like, what's the worst performing thing at the moment, that hopefully that noise should be uniformly distributed, because you're right, there's not some issues there. Yeah.
Perhaps a follow-on. When you look at the network, have you looked at the networks for people who have cancelled for other reasons, and how do they compare to those?
So not cancelling. Actually, one thing I did do, which was a fun week, was looking at blends for people that ring in our customer service team, saying that their dog's got, you know, like Winnie Poos and bad parts, basically. So we've looked at like flatulence complaints, and we did actually identify some ingredients that we thought could be causing it. So yeah, you can do it in a lot. Whenever you want to, it's basically a way of comparing our blends and the impact of them on a different thing. Here we're mostly looking at different food, but you can absolutely do it for reasons.
You say you collect breed and gender detail. Have you applied those to the models, and have you read anything interesting from that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's, so I can't remember which way around it is on gender, but gender and particularly neutering status as well is quite significant in palatability. There's actually a little bit of research out there at the moment on gender and different levels of like protein in like, you know, in the wider academic studies of palatability. We've looked into that on our data and we couldn't find the link between protein, but yeah, there's for sure a difference in that as well as those characteristics.
My question is, you've got the data for sending it back and not liking it. Does that change during the year? Humans tend to eat different food during the year, and there's some who like food and need to eat more stodgy and carb kind of food. Is it the same for dogs, or?
I don't know. So one thing we have seen is that dogs tend to eat less when it's hot, as humans do, I guess. You're just, you know, lying around, can't be bothered. So we do see that trend in you know, how much we think our dogs are eating, which kind of feeds into cancellations as well as other metrics. Other than that, we've not seen that yet, but that's an interesting point.
You've chosen for your graphical representations to use the static cycle. Do your insights change at all? Can you see anything different if you use some of the other static ones, or indeed a dynamic one?
So, so the way that, and we have played around with other layouts and stuff. We settled on the kind of circular spring layout because ultimately the most value we were getting from it was the connecting edges, I guess. Everything else we could kind of infer from the data, and that was the clearest way in which we could see those.
Did you have any examples of connections in your graph where you had like two nodes which by themselves looked relatively popular, but the combination was particularly unpopular? Like looking at the graph, the colours seemed to be like correlated with the colours of the nodes.
So I guess we do actually. Well, interestingly, we did see that in puppies, because I guess it's kind of, they're correlated because, I mean, like you very rarely get like blends with like just like one kibble in it, which is where I think you can see the correlation. The exception for that is puppies. When the dogs are really, really young puppy, we just give you like just like our single ingredients before we move on to recipes. And in that instance, you can see the individual like puppy ingredients that we've got being like really, really good, but then when we like combine them and make them things, it was like get not so good, because which we then tried to, which we've made better now. But yeah, I think it's hard because they are so correlated how we use them.
We need to wrap up here, so we have time for the room change. We can ask a question afterwards.
Yeah.
Can we thank Lorna, please?